Alright, world according to Steph, foundations, let's see, 28, 29. Now this might be in two parts too, so I'm going to say part 1, chapter 29, part 1, okay? Now, in the last part, and we're going to do something about this, I'm sorry about that. In the last part, I discussed several things, but mainly I talked about some possibilities that may be happening in our world right now. I know because talking to a friend of mine that people are a little afraid right now. Okay, I know that. So this friend of mine is managing my father's home, which is up for sale, and doing some other things that I'm actually paying him for. My father is trying to deal with my mother's death, which is slowly happening. I'm not trying to predict the future. I've said before that, doctors can always be wrong, but after a conversation with her over the weekend, I can't even call it a conversation, really. And she hurt herself very badly recently at another institution. So we're really watching her closely, and we're keeping her right in the hospital now. And she's in hospice. And my mother has suffered much of her life. She really has. I think her happiest times were when I lived in Kansas City with my children, and when they were older, and my daughter started having the grandchildren, and for a while, I really believe that my mother was the happiest she'd ever been during that period of time. But at any rate, and she changed. She really did. And when she got Alzheimer's, everybody says horrible things about Alzheimer's, and in truth, much of it is true. But I have a theory about it. I truly believe that in some ways, when a person is speaking about something that you've never heard of, or where'd this come from? I don't think it's their mind anymore. I believe it's their soul. And that's speaking in a language that, for heaven's sake, that our mind cannot understand clearly. Okay? We have to be on a soul-to-soul level to really understand that. And when I talked to my father about it, because he had been with my mother for the last several years of this dementia, he actually agreed with me. And that's, I didn't even expect that, not from him, because my father wasn't a scientist, but he always claimed to be an atheist until I asked him one day, well, Dad, do you believe in the laws of nature? And I caught him. And he said, of course I believe in the laws of nature. And I said, okay, well, I hate to tell you this, but you're really not an atheist. And one of these days, I hope I can get into that part of some of my books that talk about that, my spiritual books. Now, the last session, I talked about a man named Cecil Rhodes, and it's spelled Rhodes. I think some people, I wear dentures, believe it or not. So sometimes it'll look like I'm chewing gum or something, but I'm really just messing with the teeth that are in my mouth. Yes, I lost all my teeth after I had a brain aneurysm. in 2000, when was that? Oh, it was 5 years ago. 2007, I had a very serious brain aneurysm, but I lived. Here to tell the tale. It was a miracle. One of those other miracles in life. Okay? And I lived. They operated on me. I had the kind where they go into the vein and they come in to the leg and they go into your heart and all the way up into your brain. And they put 4 titanium stents into my brain on the left side. So there's no way I can fly anymore. I used to fly all the time when I was in the business of being a computer scientist. Not anymore. That's over with. So I guess I flew enough in my lifetime, in this lifetime. And about the only thing I can do now is drive, take a boat, or take a train. That's it. I have to stay on the ground. Because otherwise, I'm in danger of bleeding. My brain, starting to bleed again. Now that was almost a full 5 years ago when that happened. I'm coming up on an anniversary for that. Or at least when we found it. And that's just one of the many, many miracles in my life. And it's all by the grace of God that today I can see all of these things as miracles. I do not regret my past. I share it with you freely, but there is no regret. Anybody that's ever done harm to me, I pray for them. I learned how to forgive. That's something that I've talked about in some of my videos. I'm going to re-talk about it again because it is extremely important for all of us to forgive right now, especially. I think it is extremely important for all of us to be in prayer and meditation at this time, right now. So I'm not going to talk about what the possibilities of the future are anymore because I'm done with that. I think what's more important right now is to get back into what we were doing with Emmet Fox and discuss the things that truly will protect us, that truly will make us realize that we have choices today, that we can, no matter what happens in our world, no matter what the controls are about, for instance, Google. Last night, before I went to sleep, I rechecked my phone for messages, text messages from my family, and maybe missed phone calls because I do frequently have those. I accidentally miss them. And I had a notice from Google about assigning this form, and it allowed me to make some comments about the fact that the UN is trying to take over the internet. Well, being a programmer from way back, I started using the internet when it just became public. Okay, that was years and years and years ago. I never put in my own web pages. I didn't have time. I was too busy working. My company did though, and I had to support some of that, actually. So I am somewhat familiar with how to do all that. And right now, I do have a website that I paid for, and I have a domain name, and I am planning to try to get that thing started. So what I want to do now is to get back into what we were working on. I've already given everybody an update about the possibilities of what's going to happen around December 21st. Um, I refuse to live in fear. I just refuse. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let other people antagonize me and harass me and try to make me feel bad about myself, because I don't. I feel great about myself. And I want all of you to feel good about yourself too, just like I do. I have some friends online who I know are in a good place. And I am so happy that they are my friends. Any of you who are in a great place, cool. Good for you. Now, I'm really disabled, but you know what? I don't let that stop me. Not one little bit. So, let's get back to where we were before. Before we were talking about karma. So man has a choice of karma or Christ. Okay? And this is the best news that has ever come to mankind. And for that reason, it is called the good news. And the glad tidings, or the gospel, such as is the meaning of his word. His dominion over all things as the image and likeness of God. He has his choice. He can remain, shut her off here. He can remain, he can remain in a limited region of matter or mind, in which case he is bound fast on the wheel of karma, or he can appeal through prayer to the realm of spirit, that is the Christ, and be free. But he has the choice, Christ or karma. And Christ is Lord of karma. And as I said before, that is in all caps. All caps. And when Emmet does all caps, it's big time stuff. Okay? Christ is Lord of karma. Okay, that's what he says. Now remember, you don't have to agree with this, you don't have to go along with this, but it's Sermon on the Mount. Might as well listen, right? Okay. Now, this is where I left off, so we're going to start something fresh now. In the East, where karma is so well understood, and how true that is, frankly, I'm going to make a comment about this. I really don't believe a lot of Americans who say they know about karma truly understand it. Not yet. That's not a bad thing. It just means that we need to learn more. And we need to be willing to learn. That's something that I had to learn how to do. To realize that, oops, I don't know everything. How about that? The big news. Steph is not all knowing. Wow. It took a lot off my shoulders, let me tell you. I was so happy to find that out. Now, let me move on to the very smart people here. So in the East, where karma is so well understood, they are without the Christian message of the Christ. Well, that's not so true anymore. Remember, he wrote this in the 1930s. Okay, you must remember that. And they therefore find themselves in a rather hopeless position. We, however, who rightly understand the gospel of the Christ, see, now Emmet is starting to say it the way it should be said. That Christ is not, he identified what Christ truly means, Lord of karma, but it means more than that. It also means anointed one. He identified it as meaning some other things too. But it's not Jesus' last name. Okay, so I prefer to call Jesus the Christ. And I honor Jesus for being the Christ. Now, he continues to say that, in other words, karma turns out to be inexorable only so long as you do not pray. As soon as you pray, you begin to rise above karma. He talked about that before when we were on this, okay? Rising above karma. I don't know if you remember that, but now we're going to talk about it again. That is to say, you begin to wipe out the unpleasant consequences of your past mistakes. Now, I'll bet y'all wondered why I did a little biography of myself, huh? I'll bet y'all wondered. See, God works in my life just like a clock, letting me know what I'm supposed to do exactly what I'm supposed to do at exactly the right time. And if I just continue to use prayer and meditation, I have no problems. No real problems. Not at all. So, let me continue. For any given mistake, you must either suffer the consequences, which we call being punished, or wipe them out by scientific prayer. That's my iPad. I got an email. Probably need to ignore that, but I don't have time to turn it off right now. Thank you. It's Monday. Okay. I get a lot of email from places that I should just shut off. Okay. For any given mistake, you must either suffer the consequences, which we shall call being punished, or wipe them out by prayer. Or prayer, the practice of the presence of God. You have the grand choice, Christ or karma. Okay. Now, this Christ or karma thing is going to become much more clear now. Are you starting to get the idea here? Okay. A lot of people say, well, that's karma. Okay. But he's saying, no, you have a choice. It's not necessarily karma. You have a choice between Christ or karma. Okay. And what he means by Christ is Christ is Lord of karma. Christ is above karma. Okay. Does this mean that any mistake, any stupidity, any heinous sin even can be expunged from the book of life? Now, he has that caps, not all white caps, but book of life is in caps. Okay, important, very important. With all punishment or suffering naturally occurring to it? Yes, it means nothing less than that. Okay? There is no evil that the healing Christ will not destroy. God so loved the world that he manifests his unique Christ power, that whosoever chooses it shall not perish through his own weakness or frailty, but have everlasting salvation. It must not, needless to say, be supposed that the consequences of a mistake are to be cheaply evaded by a perfunctory prayer. Not so indeed. No superficial prayer, but sufficient realization of God to alter fundamentally the character of the sinner is required in order to wipe out the punishment that otherwise must always follow sufficient prayer treatment has been done, so that sinner becomes a changed man or woman, and will not even desire to repeat his sin, then is he saved? And then are the penalties remitted? For Christ is Lord of God. Now, we're going to hit a new chapter, and I am going to get into the new one real quick, too. But I want to talk about this just for a minute. This is the end of this part of the do unto others as we do unto them part, okay? And what we weed out, we'll return back. This part here is so important, it's unbelievable. When I gave you my biography, I told you about some horrible things that happened to me, but you must remember, those things happened to me because I chose for them to happen. And you might say, well, how could you choose to be beaten by two men? Because I chose to marry them. Even though the second marriage, I really didn't think that I would be beaten. I never in a million years thought that was going to happen. But I also knew that that relationship was not a healthy relationship. And, being young and naive and not spiritual at all. Well, we are spiritual, but I chose not to use my spiritual gifts. I entered into that marriage for a perfectly good reason. I did not want my son to live without a father. I'd already been down that road once, and that was a terrible road. And I felt like I could not give my first son his father. And so he never knew his real father. And that is very sad. But that was a choice too. Now, I don't punish myself for those choices today. Today, I use those choices to help others, to show others that there is light at the end of those choices that we make that seem so wrong and so difficult and so hard, but in truth, they're lessons to us. And if we take an inventory and take stock of our lives as each time as we get older, after a certain amount of years, we take inventory again and review our lives with the help of somebody else who might be a minister or somebody we respect and honor for their help in identifying all of those people in our lives who first we must forgive, and we also must forgive ourselves. And that is what Emmet is basically talking about. That we have those choices today. And we've always had them. But now we need to learn how to use them. And this is what Sermon on the Mount is going to help us to do. So let's go to chapter 7. By their fruits. Again, we're in Matthew. Emmet likes Matthew, and I think a lot of people do. Matthew would seem to be whoever wrote Matthew, because we really haven't determined all that. We don't know precisely who wrote all these Gospels. By their fruits. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. Okay, now let's talk about that. Intelligence is just as essential a part of the Christian message as is love. God is love. Now, how many times have I told you that? God is love. It's that simple. God is not something to be feared. Never to be feared. We have to learn to feel love from God. And I've talked about some methods to do that. And if you try them, I guarantee you they will work. I had to do them with myself. Because I was a woman who never felt loved until I grew up and found myself again the second time. Now, but God is also infinite intelligence. And unless these two qualities are balanced in our lives, we do not get wisdom. For wisdom is the perfect blending of intelligence and love. Let me say that again. Wisdom is the perfect blending of intelligence and love. Love without intelligence may do much undesigned harm. Now, if I told you a lot more in depth about my story, you would say, oh my goodness, why did this young woman do some of the things that she did? Well, I had love inside of me, but I may not have had the intelligence, so I definitely did not have the wisdom that he's talking about. And by having that wisdom, we developed harmony and balance, okay, within our lives. The spoiled child is a case in point. An intelligence without love may ultimate in clever cruelty. All true Christian activity will express wisdom, for zeal without discretion is proverbially mischievous. Now, I have trouble saying words because of these teeth. I know they don't even look false, but they are. And even my doctor was in shock about a month ago when I told him, false teeth, doc. It often happens that when people first become possessed of a knowledge of the truth, now that's in caps, the truth. We're talking about God's truth right now, okay? And are perhaps set free from some oppressing difficulty. I want you to remember this. I hope you download my videos to a good, safe place, okay? I recommend it. I really do. I wish for you to do that. Because I want you to have them for the future. If you really listen to my words and to Emmet's words, these are very, very important. We may need them, all of us. Okay? So he says that perhaps this truth, okay, will set free from some oppressing difficulty. They are so overjoyed that they go running about pouring out their discovery to others indiscriminately. Okay, now you got a problem with that, okay? And probably urging them to accept the truth too. It is entirely understandable that this should happen. For love songs to share its good. But nevertheless, it is very unwise. The fact is that the acceptance of truth involves, as we have seen, the scrapping of all the old standards. And after all, this is a tremendous thing to expect from anyone. And it can only happen in any case when people are spiritually ready for the change. Okay, I'm not going to stop yet, but I'm going to tell you something. Naturally, I couldn't tell everything about my story because it would go on and on and on and on. I'm 59 years old, so my God, what am I going to do? Tell you 45 years of Steph's life? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm my story really begins much sooner than that, actually. And when I do finish the book, and I'm on page 240 right now. But when I do finish the book, all will be very clear. And what Emmet is talking about, I've been through a number of times. I went through it a couple of times, and it was good. And then I met my best spiritual advisor I ever had in my life. This lady was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. A lot of things that I have shared with you out of some of my notebook remembrances came from this lady. Came from her spiritual wisdom. And she in turn was taught by others too. And finally she said to me at one point in time, not too long ago in fact, that Steph, I cannot teach you anymore. You have learned everything. In fact, you have gone way past even me. And that kind of shocked me when she said that, because I did not feel it in my heart. But we meditated together one day. She had moved to Texas, and I went down to see her. I was in excruciating pain when I went down there, but I had two reasons. My son, who passed away, was at Fort Hood at the time, and I wanted to go see him, visit him, be a good mother, and spend some time with my child while he was stationed in a place that he was not used to being. And it was a wonderful visit that I cherish every day of my life. So glad I could do that for my child. And then the other reason was to be with my wonderful spiritual advisor, who was horribly sick at the time. And we managed to go to a beach on this lake in Texas, and we went to one of her friends' houses, and we meditated. And I went into such a deep meditation that afterwards she wanted me to tell her about it, which I did. And she told me that this is why I don't believe that she had taught me everything that she could possibly teach me. I know very well that I have so much more to learn. But she did tell me that my meditation, the type of lights that I saw, the type of energy that I was exhibiting, was way beyond anything she had ever encountered in all of her spiritual time. And that was pretty kind of scary for me. But anyway, she is the one. After 5 years of feeling like I was really getting spiritually fit, I asked her to help me. And she said, the thing that she said to me was very interesting. She said, are you ready to let go of everything you ever knew? And it took me totally by surprise. And I said, what do you mean? And she said just exactly what I said. And I thought, okay, I thought I already did that. No, I had not done it. Not to her specifications. She was on the level of Emmet Fox. And believe me, the things that I learned from this wonderful, beautiful soul were unbelievable. Lifted my spirit to a level that I could never tell you. But anyway, let's move on just real briefly, and then we're going to stop. If one is spiritually ready, and you must be spiritually ready for all this, keep that in mind. This is not going to work if you're not ready. Trust me. If one is spiritually ready, he will be glad to accept the truth. Okay? If it be put forward in some way that can appeal to him, if he not be ready, no amount of intellectual discussion or argument will make him so. Now, I'm going to stop there, the low mark there, so you know where we were at. And when we continue on, just let me say that in part 2, we're going to talk about the Holy Spirit. We're going to talk about inspiration and guidance. And I really think that you're going to truly, truly enjoy what you're going to hear. And I think that I would like for everybody to give this some deep thought. Anyone who watches this, please give it some deep thought. Now, even if you're not a Christian, it doesn't matter. These principles apply to anyone and everyone. I don't care if you're a Buddhist, if you're Islamic, if you're anything, Hindu. These principles apply to any human being. Trust me. Now the meditation stuff, I hope that the people who are watching me have actually started doing the examples that I've told you or suggested to you to do. I will never tell anybody to do anything. All I can do is suggest. That's all I'll ever do. You must decide whether you wish to give this a try or not. One thing I'm going to remind everyone about is how to love oneself, how to find that love. Okay? Because if you don't love yourself, you're in serious trouble. You're going to find that chaos in your life everywhere you turn. You know, some people might think that my life right now is in chaos, but it's not. Because my mother is passing? No. It does not create chaos. In actuality, it's quite the opposite. My whole family realizes that it is her time. We know that. Now, that's not to say that everybody in my family believes as I do, because they don't. But we all can easily see that it is my mother's time to move on. And fortunately, remember I told you that the best time of her life came just not that long ago, about 10 years ago. And during that time, after I'd had some operations on myself, I was able to move around a little better, and I was able to participate in some of life a little more. I got both my parents involved in a spiritual experience, and my mother absolutely loved it. So I was able to share some spirituality on a new level with my mother, and she embraced it. And that is one of the reasons why I know she will be fine. She will be absolutely fine. And in reality, hard as this is, it's sad to say goodbye. It is sad because I have to say goodbye from a distance. But yet, soul to soul, there is no distance. And I pray and meditate, and hopefully when her soul finally is released in its entirety, I will be visited by her. And believe me, I've had that experience over in my life more than once. You can choose to believe it or not. It's your choice. You all have choices. But the last thing I want to say today is that to find that love, I talked about this before, there are some exercises that you can do, find, and develop that love for yourself. The first exercise is for about 2 weeks to go into your bathroom mirror and say, I am loved. Just say that. I am loved. Say it right in the mirror. Look right at yourself and say, I am loved. And then after you do that for a couple of weeks, maybe you have to do it longer than 2 weeks. It's up to the individual. Maybe you're not comfortable with it yet. See, you'll know when it's ready. You will know when to move on. And the moving on part is when you look in the mirror for the next few weeks and you say, I am loved by God. I am loved by God. I love all of you. Every one of you. So, I hope you enjoyed this one. And the next one will be the continuation of where we left off. I know you're going to love the rest of this. I surely do. So, I'll let you go. Thank you all. This was part 1 of 29. And part 2 may be tomorrow for all I know. I'm trying to get these done as quickly as I can.